Our attention now turns to Rolfes Technology Holdings. Well, we've got in studio, no, we're going straight to Rolfes, and we haven't given us any detail about Rolfes, but you're going to do that, Paul, aren't you?
Yeah, look, everything here, we're talking small, focused industrial company within the kind of business supply chain. So in other words, they have certain pigments and other stuff which they sell, but they also sell significantly into the auto industry in terms of the paints and so on and so forth. I mean, some earnings volatility. It's a survivor from the Altex listings boom of, I don't know, 2007 or thereabouts.
Well, that's got to say something.
Yes,
it's a
exactly.
Survivor of that era.
And again, though, I guess one has to ask questions here about, where they will be going and taking us, given that they have had that earnings volatility.
Daniel, you've had a chance to look at this one in some detail. Where are they going?
I personally like the story. I think they have a tendency to focus on specialized chemicals, which creates quite a barrier to entry. For example, they export chemicals that go into inks in Europe. They're one of the only places that does it. I think that recently they've had good cash flows. They've geared up the balance sheet now for this new acquisition. But I think it's a very promising one, and I think it's going to deliver some surprisingly good returns.
When you say it's a promising one, could I go so far as to say it may be a 10-bagger of the future?
Can you define what the future is?
Okay, I clearly put in my place right there. I don't want to answer questions on the news desk. Dan, let me throw it to you. Anything to add?
No, they've acquired a 70% controlling stake in a chemical business, and they're looking at possibly listing new shares, also to raise or possibly to do a new acquisition of, the CEO said, in the region of 100 million rand. So quite a big acquisition trail as well. Also got huge operations globally and Europe, which is somewhat slightly slowed down with regard to the somewhat recessionary environment that's happening there. But nonetheless, yeah, I think it's quite a good business. They've also had a massive run in the share price. In 2010, they were around 1 rand. And they're now around 4 rand. So it's had a huge run. Also technically formed that big bowl, a very similar technical formation on technical analysis, which is quite bullish, but at current levels it's had quite a big run, but I still do like it as well.
As our resident expert, do you want to ask these guys any more questions?
No, well, just quickly, when you say defined future, your cryptic comment, I mean, did you imply that you're not quite sure it's going to do in the short term, but it could do well in the medium to long term? Is that where you're coming with that?
I took some time to define the future, 10 years. 10 years out?
10 bag in 10 years. Look, I don't want to commit myself to an actual number, but it's going to do well.
The caution is well noted on the desk. Right, hot or not? Dan?
Am I allowed to be lukewarm?
No, I can only give you one lukewarm in a show. I'm going to get fired if I don't get hot or not out of my guess.
I'll say hot for the long term.
Hot.
For the long term.
Daniel?
Look, something just to consider is that in the interims now, the ag chem business, which is that new acquisition, that was only in for 2 months of the 6, and it's a very seasonal business because the season runs from the end of June to Feb next year. So the first 4 months of the second half of the year is actually better than the last 2 months. So if you adjust for that acquisition as if it was in for the whole time period, you can actually add like 5 cents to the interim HEPS earnings. So, I mean, if you take that as a normalized earnings for the full year, the stock's actually not looking as expensive as if you just looked at the actual reported number. So, like I said, I think it's a good business. I think it's well protected from its technology, from a technology point of view, and I would say hot.